everyone. Welcome to our RegTech Edge No Borders event on financial crime, AML, CTF, sanctions, fraud solutions. In the spirit of reconciliation, the RegTech Association acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Since 2020, we have had over 19,000 people from more than 85 countries attend our programs. For this particular event, we have had 282 registrations from 27 countries. We have 58 regulated institutions, 36 government regulators, 11 investment firms, and 85 RegTechs. So thanks to all of you for joining wherever you are today. Just a bit of housekeeping, please. Today will be recorded and every registered delegate will receive the link. Cameras and microphones off, please, unless you are presenting. Thank you. All questions in the chat, and don't be shy. I'll ask our presenters to jump directly onto the chat to answer any questions that do come in. There will be some polls up now and then that you'll see pop up on the screen, and we ask if you could please answer those. Thank you. And to our presenters, I'd like to respectfully ask you not to go over your 5 minutes so that everyone that is presenting gets an equal opportunity. Now it is with my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Saket Narayan from Amazon Web Services, who will provide us with a quick overview on the current landscape. Saket leads the finance and regulation industry for Amazon Web Services, AWS, across Australia, New Zealand, and Oceania. In this role, Saket works as a trusted advisor to central banks, federal and state revenue authorities, financial services regulators, and fintechs and regtechs. Saket has extensive experience in working with finance authorities across ANZ, US, UK, Singapore, and Malaysia on cross-border data analytics, regtech, and fintech initiatives. Prior to joining AWS, Saket worked for one of Australia's federal regulators for over 10 years in a variety of leadership roles. Over to you, Saket. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. I would also like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of all the lands on which we come together today. Acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who have joined us today. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. As Alison said, over 280 people across 27 countries. What a fantastic turnout. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'd also like to express my gratitude to the 7 RegTechs who will each have 5 minutes to present to you today on the financial fraud prevention solutions. But before I call upon our first RegTech presenter for the event today, I'll provide you with a brief overview of the financial fraud and the scams landscape. As you probably know, it is an area which is rapidly evolving. Scammers and fraudsters are increasingly becoming sophisticated in the approach, and new techniques are on the rise. I'm confident that everyone in this audience is aware of someone who has been a victim of a scam or fraud at some stage. Globally, trillions of dollars is lost to frauds and scams every year. Next slide, please, Hong. And in addition to the financial losses, frauds and scams can cause fear, anxiety, embarrassment, loss of trust, and confusion. At Amazon, we are unusually customer obsessed, and continuing to earn customers' trust is our key priority. Scams and frauds erode customer trust. And as RegTechs in the audience today, earning your customers' trust is also key to you. And so continually staying on top of the latest services and guidance available to build protections against the bad actors is not just good hygiene, but essential to run a viable business. Next slide, please. Now, there are different kinds of frauds and scams. Some examples that I've highlighted on this slide for you include identity fraud in financial services, account takeover and claims processing in e-commerce, payment fraud in travel and hospitality, subscription fraud in telecom and money laundering and tax fraud, such as illegal phoenixing or shell companies in public sector government services. Now, just touching on the scams just for a minute, in Australia, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, ACCC, report on the scams activity in 2022 highlighted that losses to scams have increased significantly in recent years. The combined losses reported to ScamWatch, Report Cyber, the Australian Financial Crimes Exchange, ID Care, ASIC, and other government agencies was at least 3.1 billion Australian dollars in 2022. This, by the way, is an 80% increase on total losses recorded in 2021. So, of course, regulation of scam activity is a top priority for the Australian government, ACCC and ASIC. A National Anti-Scam Centre, as some of you may be aware, that has been set up by the government, came into operation on the 1st of July 2023 in Australia. And similar initiatives have also progressed in countries like Singapore and Malaysia. And to share with you briefly on Amazon's data points in this space, in 2022, 10,000 phone numbers being used for impersonation scams globally. In 2022, Amazon also spent over $1.2 billion on fraud and scam prevention efforts. Next slide, please, Hong. Next slide, please, Hong.
So, Kat, it's gone to the next slide. Perhaps you can't see it your side, though.
Okay, so we probably want to go back a slide. Sorry, it's just caught up, but it's gone too far. Excellent. Yep, perfect. Balancing the need to provide best-in-class customer experience with detecting and preventing fraud in real time is a delicate job. Additional checks or delaying the release of payments to counter fraud often introduces friction to the customer interaction at the detriment of a good customer experience. Next slide, please, Hong. Now, this slide talks about the various stages of the citizen online interaction journey and the fraud types at those stages. Now, in the interest of time, I would skip the details as I really want you to get to the presentations from our RegTechs today. But it's helpful by way of context as you listen to the presentations to remember that different approaches may be required to counter frauds depending on the stages of the customer online interaction journey, from onboarding to post-authorization and all the stages in between. Next slide, please. Now, the good news is that advanced detection and prevention capabilities are helping reduce fraud at all levels of the customer journey. You are about to hear from 7 RegTechs today on their propositions on fighting financial fraud. So to kick off, all our RegTech presenters, as Alison mentioned before, would have 5 minutes each, and I would turn on my camera at 4.5 minutes mark into your presentations as a reminder to wrap up, please. I would now like to introduce our first speaker, Jamie from Jade Third Eye. Over to you, Jamie.
Thank you, Saket, and thank you, RegTech Australia, for having Jade as part of this presentation. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Jamie Muir, AML Solutions Consultant at Jade, and I'm going to be talking about Jade software and our AML solution, Jade Third Eye. Next slide, please. So Jade Software is an iconic Australasian business with local support and global reach. We're a technology company at heart, and our primary business driver has always been to liberate people with technology. And we've been able to continuously succeed in that area over the past 40 plus years. Our wider professional services our wider professional services allow us to build, design, and manage tech solutions used on critical infrastructure and that operate with very sensitive data, from rail and shipping logistics, core banking, healthcare, payroll, criminal investigations, and so on. We have an extensive managed services offering, and we currently have over 1,500 databases managed globally, and we have a very strong focus on regulated markets and financial services. We have 300 staff predominantly based in Australia and New Zealand with 24/7 support that run and maintain our Jade Third Eye platform, which I'm going to cover off in a moment. And our Jade Third Eye platform specialists are supported by a wider pool of designers, analysts, architects, engineers, and security consultants who are all in-house at Jade. Next slide, please. So what is Jade Third Eye? So Jade Third Eye is our AML SaaS solution used across Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. It comes in 4 modules. So we have a customer screening offering that allows you to screen your customers against the gold standard of watchlist data, being Refinitiv, WorldCheck, and Dow Jones. There's a lot of configurability under the hood, notably the ability to subdue any repeating alerts in relation to customers as they are continuously screened on your book. The next module there is our transaction monitoring module, which offers a fully configurable rules engine with over a decade of tried and true rules. And we have sector-based rule libraries ready to go. And we can obviously create any sort of custom rules that are relevant to your specific business requirements. The third piece there is our automated reporting for both AUSTRAC and NZFIU. We have fully configurable data mapping, auto-field populated forms, and form controls. And this really helps keep AUSTRAC and NZFIU very happy with the reports that they receive from our software. And last but not least is our AML case management solution, which streamlines those customer and transaction monitoring alerts into an overarching case for that single customer view. And ultimately, those cases can be converted seamlessly into an automated regulatory report for sending off directly to AUSTRAC and NZFIU. And our solution is customizable in the sense that you can take any combination of these modules or all of them at varying price points. Next slide, please. So just to touch on who we work with banks, building societies, credit unions, mutuals, gaming, wagering, wealth management, insurance, casinos. We have a clean sweep on casinos in New Zealand. And this all comes back to the configurability of the product that allows us to work across all of these sectors. We're very happy that we can say that we have an impressive track record with regards to maintaining long-term client relationships with over a decade of experience implementing and nurturing the Jade Third Eye product. And we are continuing to see really good growth and healthy engagement across all the sectors. One key call out probably on this slide is that we really view ourselves as a technology partner or technology provider, not simply a software supplier. Next slide, please. So our product journey, what would this really look like for you if you were to use our Jade Third Eye AML SaaS solution? Well, the first 4 top pieces there really relate to product implementation and implementation due diligence. So we would have our specialist staff come along and do data risk and rule workshops that are appropriate for your needs. That would really accomplish those first 4 points. And it's really crucial that we understand your risk appetite with regards to going live with our tool and plugging any gap with a parallel run or moving away from any other pieces of software. We have a fully flexible data model, which allows us to work with any data platform, as well as load data from multiple different platforms if required. And the bottom 4 pieces there, they really relate to the BAU benefits that you would really enjoy with the product once you go live. Next slide, please. So the key sentiment here really, guys, is having good AML software and support at your disposal allows you to focus on what really matters. So good AML solution should really have accuracy, auditability, traceability, and transparency where appropriate. The key takeaway from me is to really never underestimate how critical that new technology partnership engagement is, especially when forming a long-term business relationship. And we're very conscious and we really appreciate that at Jade. So we think to put yourself in a position where you can collaborate with an experienced technology partner, great local communication, great local support, get the fundamentals right with an AML tool, and put yourself in a position where you can really get the absolute utmost out of what you're paying for is really, really critical. Next slide, please. So that covers it off from me, actually, guys. So if you want to know more about Jade Third Eye, please visit our website or contact me directly. We would be very pleased to embark with you on your next stage of your AML journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. Our next presenter is Paul from Orion. Welcome, Paul.
Well, thank you for that welcome, and a wide hello to the great audience that's arrived for this call. Aurelia is an Australian technology company totally focused on voice biometrics, and I'd like to take the 5 minutes I've got to explain how a lot of people understand voice biometrics to be some technology that might have some use in contact centers in conversation with agents, but I'd like to explain how we do more than that. Can I have the next slide, please? So Aurea's vision is to allow people to simply use their voice to enable convenient, secure and private access to services in all channels. We want our technology to be seen as a delight for people because it frees them from the cumbersome and other issues. We also want it to be seen as a security enhancer for both organisations and individuals. Importantly, the EVA technology that we're presenting here is language independent, so it doesn't matter what country in the world people are coming from. Our technology works just as well for any language. Next slide, please. Now, everybody understands the problem, especially if you're on this call. Trying to remember PIN numbers, passwords, knowledge-based questions, all of the other personal information that you know makes it difficult to get access to service, but we all know doesn't actually really deliver much security these days with all of that information that we've been using available to bad actors. Now, I'm a great fan of making sure that something like the trusted device is the first or most likely first level of security in gaining access to something. But a mistake that many organizations and consumers have is, if I've got the device, it must be me. Well, I've used the fingerprint and the face reader on the device, surely it must be the authorized person. But if somebody's got access to the device, then they can register their own fingerprint, they can register their own face, and they can get access to your services. So sending more one-time passcodes or more SMSs or more emails to the device that you've already relied on as the first factor doesn't make it any more secure. It just makes it more inconvenient. So next slide, please. How do we really know that the person with the device is in fact the authorized person? Then we present a one-time passcode to authorize an uplift in security. You display it on the screen. Allow the person to touch the microphone icon that activates the device microphone and get them to save that one-time passcode. The device doesn't make any decisions. It just securely posts that recording back to the vault where your voice print is securely resident. And what EVA does says, well, did this recording come from the trusted device? As far as we can tell, yes. So therefore, one step is completed. The second thing is the person confirming this transaction, confirming the transaction that this one-time passcode relates to? Yes, the correct one-time passcode is spoken. And then the most secure and most important part of this process is, did that person's voice match the voice print that we had on file for that individual? And if it does, then the transaction or the access to service can complete or be processed. And what happens in that environment, of course, is a number of other things occur. For instance, we now know for our regulatory compliance people that account has a low level probability of being phoenixed. It's still being operated by the authorized person that was set up in the customer onboarding process. We can also have a non-reputable digital signature associated with that, with the voice, so that a first party fraud can't just say, it wasn't me, it mustn't be me, something must be wrong with your systems, because you've got that voice print related to that transaction. So let's move to the next slide, please. Voice biometrics not only allows the right people to get through and get access to services or confirm a transaction, but we can be listening in the background to every conversation that happens in an organization, whether it's to a contact center agent, to a voice bot, or for those sorts of voice transaction authorization processes. And every voice can be compared to a known list of fraudsters or bad actors or nuisance people or ex-employees that are not appropriate. We can find those people in a conversation and alert and create other events. So the last slide, please. The next slide. And of course, whilst I started on digital transactions and forensic analysis, we have the contact center environment where it just makes life easier, quicker, and faster. Next slide, please. And these are the sorts of organizations around the world that are using our technology to solve these problems. Next slide. Thank you very much. My name's Paul McGee. I'm available at that email address, and I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Paul. Next in line is Tom from Freed ZI. Welcome, Tom.
Hi there, thank you very much for having me here today. Just kick off. Fantastic. No, sorry, if you go back one, please. Let me give you a quick introduction. My name is Tom Clifford. I'm the Strategic Sales Director for FeedZai here in Southeast Asia. Apologies, I'm not familiar with certain welcome customs in Australia, but big thank you to all peoples, past and present. Obviously FeedZai out here as well. We've got offices in Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, India, as well as globally worldwide, servicing our financial institutions. Now, I'm going to take a second here and stop talking about FeedZai. And instead, I want to make an observation. And it's a clear observation that all 117 people on this call today have one thing in common. And that's that they have a bank account. Doesn't matter if you work in a bank, doesn't matter where you work, you, I hope anyway, probably have a bank account. And why do we have those accounts? Well, we have those accounts because we want to put our money, our hard-earned money, into a safe place, a place that we can add to it, we can build, we can save for that rainy day, save for that retirement that we've always wanted, save to pay for our kids' college tuitions, save to put our parents into a good home and provide medical care for them at that late stage in life. Now, imagine waking up one day and accessing your bank account and all those funds that you've built over all those hard working years is suddenly gone. There's just a zero on that account. Imagine how you feel. Imagine how you feel about the bank that you trusted with those funds. And I think this is what we want to talk about today. Next slide, please. Because scams is a growing concern for everybody out here. You should be concerned about it if you work for a bank. You should be concerned about it if you don't work for a bank. You can be the victim, but you can also be the savior of this. You know, and it's the stats speak for themselves. Like earlier on, you were talking about kind of the mental impact of this. Well, put these figures into context for you as well. 660 million Sing dollars stolen in Singapore in 2022. That's huge. And look at the UK. In the UK, 71% increase in scams. It is now surpassed the losses of card fraud. So when people kind of talk to you about kind of what are you protecting as a bank, what's your priorities? 71% of losses are coming out. 71% increase, sorry, on scams is happening right now. And it's not slowing down, it's growing if anything. So really what we're seeing at the moment is this is a pandemic, a global pandemic. It's not localized anymore. It's impacting everyone, everywhere. And this is why FeedZai is coming in and specializing on some of our solutions to assist on this front. For those of you who don't know us, FeedZai is a global company. We specialize providing end-to-end fraud and financial crime software to financial institutions. So that means that we look at everything from onboarding to transactions across different omni-channels. We look at KYC, CDD, and AML screening and customer screening and so on. But over the last 2 years, FeedZai has refocused this and put over $50 million in research and development, working with banks to resolve this specific problem, scams. Now, next slide, please. By partnering with our global clients, which represents all forms of financial institutions, global banks, regional banks, e-wallets, neobanks, what we're actually realizing is that we need to explore the entirety of the scam timeline. Please click if you can. We recognize that there was prime opportunities across these three key fields. Starting off with access and payments. This is where FeedSci can really help. We bring to these banks detection models that can help better be able to identify concerning transactions and stop these in real time. We then look at customer treatment as well. By providing white box explainability around our AI models, what we're able to do is allow those analysts, allow those people working at the bank, when they get a phone call from somebody in distress, to say, actually, we know exactly what happened. We're following on your funds. We know exactly how they were stolen. We can, come back and help you, kind of educate you about how this doesn't happen in the future. But it gives you more kind of ability to relate and to address your customer. And then finally, recipient and muling. The money's gone, so what does it matter? It does matter. There's still a chance that we can get the money back. It's important that we follow the funds after they were actually stolen. What happens after funds are stolen? Well, they're often put into a layering system and run through mule accounts. And this is where FeedSci looks at inbound and outbound transactions across these banks, so that even if you're not the direct recipient of a scam, maybe we can actually catch at those funds at that second level as well. Click again, please.
We are at time now, Tom.
Apologies. Okay.
Let you wrap it up quickly.
I'll wrap up. Yep, absolutely. So the idea here is that FeedSci has recognized a simple approach towards this type of detection, which is payment alone doesn't actually address it. We're looking at three different areas: context, session behavior, and payment behavior. And what this achieves isn't just fraud stoppage, stopping from fraud, but it actually creates a lifelong customer experience by protecting your customers for a change. Feel free to reach out, talk to FeedSci if you need any more information about how we're doing this with banks all over the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. I would now like to welcome Amana from FNA, Financial Network Analytics. Over to you, Amana.
Yes, thank you, Saket. So thank you everyone for having me. My name is Amana, and I'm leading the data science team for Asia Pacific at FNA. Today, I'm going to talk about a very high level of one of our solutions that is on retail payments fraud detection with Graph AI. Next slide, please. So we are a software company based in London with 2 additional entities in Barcelona, Spain, as well as in Tampa, US. We also have data science hubs in Bogota, Colombia, and Jakarta, Indonesia. So our software is used to uncover hidden connections and anomalies in large complex data sets and to predict the impact of stress events, as well as to optimally configure financial systems and infrastructures. So we work mainly with 4 different types of clients. Firstly, central banks, financial regulators. Then we work as well with national security agencies, such as US Department of Defense. On this slide, you can see. We work with FMIs, financial market infrastructures, such as CLS, Payments Canada, for example, Finality. Then we also work with commercial banks. Next slide, please. So FNA provides a rapid prototyping platform and also end-to-end analytics solution. So on the left-hand side, you can see how our platform looks like. So we do from beginning to do FNA retrieve, data sourcing, connecting to any internal database, also to crawl or collect any publicly available data. We also do data quality and resolution by having our FNA Resolve product, because merging data from different sources may be very difficult. So it might be very dirty type of data. So we have FNA Analyze and Visualize to do mainly on our network analytics engine, FNA Simulate to do simulation and optimization engine, as well as FNA real-time decision systems for any real-time executions. Next slide, please. So our solutions are central banks and payments focused. FMI is focused as well. So we do 5 different types of solutions: subtech, CBDC simulation, payments optimization, digital twins, and finally fraud and anomaly detection, to which I'm going to focus on today. Next slide, please. Yeah, just so that you little bit get understanding on how the platform looks like. So everything can be rapidly configured for new data and solution requirements. We have no code analytics to allow any configuration and customization without having to do scripting. But at the same time, we also provide proprietary scripting for advanced users who really want to get hands-on on the machine learning development and so on. And we also have FNA algo suites, which are proprietary, audited, as well as scalable algorithms to do the fraud detections using network graph AI. Next slide, please. So with respect to the scope of our graph AI in fraud detection, so there are two streams of solutions. First is on the automation support for fraud investigations, and this is related to case management, for example, money trails, related party networks, beneficial ownership, directors, and etc. The second stream of our solution is on proactive fraud detection with graph AI, and this is mainly related to behavioral intelligence, for example, unsupervised learning, such as link prediction, as well as graph AI-based learning, the supervised one. So next slide, please. So with respect to the benefits of the automated money trails, this will allow users to understand, to follow the money in the system, to automate parts of an existing manual workflow, and makes it more efficient to identify and block funds. Also allows analysts increase efficiencies and identifies of new mule accounts currently not labeled, and also to contributes to developing a better mule database. And next slide, please. Then with respect to the benefits of graph AI-based fraud detection, by using graph AI, we are able to improve the accuracy, and we saw on the data that the precision, for example, increased by 100% with respect to some other method not using the network features. And we also understand that with this type of methodology, we are able to uncover complex anomalies, and network approach is also tamper-proof, because if one of the actor or mule account is trying to change its behavior, it will be not possible to actually the solution can somehow know that, because it's very hard for them to also change the structure in the network. And finally, also with respect to the economic interpretability. All right, so yeah, please keep in touch if you want to understand more. And thank you, Saket. Over back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. Our next presenter is Paul from IDverse. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, and welcome all. So yes, IDverse, you might have heard of us before. We have a sexy new name. It is an OCR Labs company. We changed the name to closer aligned to what we actually do. So it's not just the old optical character recognition, it's the full end-to-end IDverse and ID verification technologies. So I'm really going to talk today about the kind of the perpetual KYC and one of our kind of the latest feature developments in our suite of tools. So next slide, please. Now, I think we're all very akin and well attuned to what KYC is, but I'll just kind of step back through this. So there's kind of two kind of real three things that we want to do. We want to make sure that when we're identifying someone as part of our kind of KYC requirements, we want to make sure that they have a genuine identity document. Now, there's two ways to obviously validate an identity document in a remote sense. You can look for the document authentication. So is it a real ID? Can I see the physical security features? Is it a fake? Is it tampered with? So we actually start to validate, and our document fraud analysis proves that that's a authentic document produced by a government agency, or the very well-known kind of the data verification and using kind of the DVS. Now, I think everyone has an over-reliance on using DVS as kind of ensuring that the authenticity of a document is correct, but we're also then sliding and letting through potential fraud. Like you look at the recent ATO news story, and they had a lot of people's stolen information and had over 500 million worth in fraud. So people obviously have got stolen information from the latest data breaches, put it onto a nice fraudulent looking, say, New South Wales driver's license, put their own face on it. So you're able to just pass through an IDV process if you're not actually doing some good checks to prove that that's an authentic document rather than just looking at the data. So we all kind of get to point with what KYC is. So once you're in, I know who we're dealing with. Now we start to talk around, how do I have an ongoing piece? Next slide. So perpetual KYC, what is it that we're kind of looking at? So this is now changing a compliance requirement into just a kind of a daily, everyday task. So we know there is a huge amount of global spend in trying to combat and tackle financial crime. like 213 billion US is a lot of money in 2021, but obviously we know the fraudsters, as the Australian Criminology Department estimate in 2021, there was a loss of close to 60 billion in Australia alone. So just trying to make sure that once we've onboarded them, we know who they are. Now we want to be able to kind of check them. Now, the old school way of doing it is obviously classify yourself as high, medium, or low. Therefore, you would then do kind of refresh periodically. Can I prove who Paul is on a kind of a 1, 3, and a 5-year cycle? Now, moving, if you try and be using technology to use identification throughout your kind of day-to-day banking applications or interactions, phoning a call center, logging into an app, actual any sort of interaction. If we have another layer of verification or authentication, we can start to obviously ensure that we know Paul is Paul and he continues to be Paul. He's not opened an account, handed it over to someone else. The joys of trying to manage mule accounts is incredibly difficult. So this is where we start to talk. It's a continual process of re-verifying and authenticating who they are just through the normal day-to-day activities. Rather than be a compliance add-on to tick the box, let's actually try and manage the risk. Next slide. So this is obviously reduces costs and improve accuracy. So that's all good things. Companies are very happy with that. And it will also help to try and reduce fraud, and it will stop you getting fined by AUSTRAC when I know they're got some very large frauds if you publicly search for those at the moment. Next slide. Now we're talking about the upcoming product which we've got is authentication. So it's currently in beta and it's going to be expected release very shortly. And we've got some people trialing it right now. So next slide. When I say what is authentication, obviously we have the full IDV, that kind of KYC. So we capture the document, we check you're a real person, and we check you're the right person. And therefore, now if we start to talk about re-authentication, we can do it within seconds. And if you go to the next slide. Now, this is obviously just the first look. It's kind of using, everyone's used liveness, so you can verify that it's you. We've got our lovely founder, CPO there. So we kind of go, yes, we can verify it's you. We can tie it back to your original document. So we can use it any and every time you need to authenticate a user. Like if they want to change a password, they need to change some sensitive data. They're actually phoning up to speak to a contact center. They're logging into an app and it's been a long time. So you can start to then re-authenticate with liveness. No more passwords, no more wallet questions. Next slide.
Paul, we're just at time now. In fact, we've gone over.
And yes, no, that's fine. The last slide is basically, there are many use cases. And the last slide is any questions and how do you contact me? So I was prepped and ready. And there you go. That's how you get hold of me if you need me. Go to our website or there's my email address.
Thank you, Paul. Next in line is Gray from Ingenus.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, wherever you are. Could you go to the next slide, please? I'm Gray Stopforth. I'm working for Ingenus out of the UAE office, and I'd like to thank the RegTech Association for the opportunity to present here today. Next, please. So Ingenus is a wholly owned Australian company, head office in Melbourne. We have a network of international offices. As a business, we have over 25 years of experience in developing, implementing, and supporting financial crime solutions. So our product Intuition has been developed utilizing this internal expertise, as well as working with our clients globally to help them manage these different financial crimes that we've been speaking about. We work across a number of sectors, and we work with a number of different companies from differing sizes, being large multinational banks down to small consumer finance companies. Next slide, please. Often sort of try and think about a compliance practitioner or fraud practitioner and what goes through their mind on a daily basis. There are so many challenges that they're facing, from the scams that we've been speaking about to the cyber threats that we've been speaking about. Do the solutions provide them an opportunity to manage these risks? And I think probably out of all of these, the most pertinent is the real-time decisioning and real-time processing. We have consumers out there that want an instant decision, And as a business, we need to protect those consumers and ourselves through from these increasing risks, as well as ensuring compliance. There needs to be a constant drive to improve efficiencies through technological innovation, use of data across the financial crime landscape, use of machine learning and other intelligent tools. Next slide, please. And then just as organizations think they're getting on top of this, there's new onerous regulation requirements, such as preparing for ESG, complying with the Modern Slavery Act, identifying bad actors that are benefiting from wildlife trafficking or illegal fishing or human trafficking, whatever it is. And alongside this, we have an increase in fraud as well. Next slide, please. I experienced that from legacy decisions, often organizations that we work with have got multiple solutions in place to deal with a single use case. So in one solution, in one company, there might be an application fraud solution, there might be a transaction monitoring fraud solution, a sanction screening solution, and sitting on the outside of this, there might be machine learning capabilities. Obviously, this is hugely inefficient. You're dealing with a number of vendors. Support becomes a complex issue, and with the increase in technology innovation, the increasing risks, increasing variety of fraud types, and more onerous regulatory environments, we believe it's no longer viable to have multiple solutions to deal with financial crimes requirements. Next slide, please. So Ingenious has created a single platform that addresses the challenges that I've spoken about. Intuition, our solution, is a single platform on which financial crime managers can manage both fraud and compliance at onboarding and monitoring. And this obviously comes with massive benefits for the organization, such as efficient use of data, improved team performance, sharing application and transaction data across multiple use cases. Administrators are able to use one solution to manage fraud and compliance activities. And ultimately, you can get a 360-degree view of your client. Next slide, please. So, as we know, fraud and compliance pressures come from different points. So fraud is driven by managing fraud losses, and compliance is through regulatory pressures. So within Intuition, the single platform, we're able to separate a compliance and a fraud framework, but utilize common techniques and analysis. So within Intuition, organizations have access to your alert and case management, your workflow management, machine learning, your graphical network analysis when it comes to investigations, and then flexible data models. So through Intuition, we believe that we've been able to address this requirement of this end-to-end financial crimes challenges that organizations are facing. Next slide, please. We're also an orchestration platform where we can integrate any service and will capture and store all information. The next slide. And ultimately, through Intuition, you're able to get this 360 customer view of customers across product, across the services, and the activities. I'm going to ask you to just jump over the next slide, please, and the next one.
We're just on time, sorry.
And the next one. So I thank you for your time this morning. If you want to get hold of us, Compton is our representative in Australia, and I'm available to be contacted as well. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Gray. Last but not the least, I'd like to welcome Michael from Napier. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, and thank you to RegTech for the opportunity to speak today. Hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name's Mike Murphy. I'm the Regional Sales Director for Napier here in Sydney, and we're a financial crime and compliance modularized platform provider. And we cover the full suite of services all the way from KYC onboarding, customer risk assessment, transaction monitoring, screening, as well as ongoing client activity reviews. Next slide, please. So today I'm just going to go through a very quick intro of who Napier is and the work that we do within the market. but I'm also just going to dive into where we see our point of difference for our customers around providing a single customer view across the AML process. Next slide, please. So we think we put together quite a seasoned team of AML practitioners, as well as a team with quite extensive banking and compliance experience. So within our team, we really understand the challenges when it comes to implementing AML solutions, whether it's siloed data or fragmented customer journeys, and generally just challenges with things like false positives and getting real operational efficiencies. And we think this leaves us in a strong position to be able to help remove friction from the deployment process. Next slide, please. So we've got a team of over 230, 220 customers globally, and our solution's delivered as a sector agnostic solution, as well as geographically agnostic. So we work with a number of banks, wealth management providers, asset services providers, and also work with a number of regulators as well. Next slide, please. By background, we work with the likes of HSBC, Credit Suisse, as well as a number of well-known Australian businesses such as Tabcorp, Australia Post, and also some banks like Great Southern Bank and UBank. And our solution's also been adopted by a number of global regulators, such as the CTF over in Europe, which is a multi-jurisdictional regulator. Next slide, please. And what I wanted to just dive in very briefly today with the time that we've got is where we're getting quite a fair bit of traction globally at the moment, and that's in providing a single customer view across the AML lifecycle. So whether that's providing our solution as an end-to-end experience under one user interface, or whether it's as a point-to-point solution and helping build that 360-degree view across your KYC, screening and transaction monitoring. Next slide, please. And the way that we achieve this is via our Napier Continuum platform, which is either an end-to-end platform with one user interface covering that entire AML lifecycle, from KYC, screening, customer risk assessment, through to your monitoring and ongoing client activity reviews, or is either a point-to-point solution where we can integrate and pull in those different solutions into the one user interface. And an example of how we provide that single customer view is with our client activity review module, which is a 360-degree view of all customer activity. So all your KYC screening, KYC onboarding information, your screening and transaction monitoring information, all under one user interface, which enables you to be able to have a 360-degree view of all customer activity and get a better understanding of how your customers transact across your products. But more importantly, it starts to build that conversation away from not just simply knowing your customer, but really understanding how your customer transacts, and then being able to set up alerts and triggers when expected customer behavior falls outside of current customer behavior as well. Just conscious of time, next slide. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more around how we're helping other businesses with being able to build that single customer view and really understanding your customers more deeply, I've got my contact information below. Thanks once again to RegTech for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Michael. And thanks once again to all our RegTech's presenters today. Trying to fit in your proposition in 5 minutes on such a complex topic is not an easy task by any means. So thank you once again. I'd now like to invite Alison back on the camera to conclude the event. Thank you, Alison, and thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Saket. And I agree. You guys all did a great job. It isn't easy in that 5 minutes, but it's a great opportunity to really succinctly talk to the people online about the solution that you have, the problem you solve for, and any case studies that are relevant. So well done, everyone. And thank you very much, Saket, also for your overview. That was great. I wanted to quickly tell you about some events that are coming up next. We've got on the 17th of August, RegTech Edge No Borders on conduct, culture and ethics. And on the 24th of August, tomorrow, we'll be launching our RegTech Matters, which is will be an overview of Deb, our CEO, on the ecosystem, then an update from Austrac, and then we'll have some RegTech case studies that align with the responsibilities of Austrac. So we hope to see many of you online for that. We are also reimagining our Accelerate RegTech event, and we'll be going global with it, so more information will be available on that soon. And lastly, I wanted to just take a moment to tell you all that today we farewell Hong Lu, our member services specialist. After 2 years with the association, Hong is moving on, and we wanted to thank him and also wish him well in his next adventure. So good luck, Hong. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event. Take care.